Through the window of Martha Clark's townhouse in Boston's historic Beacon Hill district, on a winter afternoon, she could see snowflakes drifting down. Martha was holding a warm cup of chamomile tea while looking at graphic design concepts spread across her desk. She was one of the most highly regarded freelance designers in the industry. Although her room was adorned with many brilliant works, Martha's eyes were fixed not on any of these, but on a small photo frame at the edge of her desk. It contained a family photo taken when she was a teenager, with her parents and sister. In the picture, she was holding a doll, and her mother Eleanor had a slightly troubled smile. When had she first thought, "Someday I want to hold my own child"? Probably since she was a little girl playing with dolls. But life had led her down an entirely different path. She majored in design in college, and immediately after graduation, joined a well-known design firm. By the time she turned 30, she had become independent and established her own studio. She'd had romantic relationships too. Some lasted long, others ended quickly. But none had fulfilled her dream of having a child. It seemed as though this desire had been pushed to the back of her mind during days consumed by work. The phone rang, and Martha came back to herself. The screen displayed "Mom." With a sigh, she answered. "Hello, Mom." "Martha, you're coming to Jessica's promotion party tomorrow, aren't you?" Eleanor Clark's voice was somewhat forceful, as usual. "Of course I'm coming. I've already sent Jessica a congratulatory message," Martha replied. "Your sister has achieved such wonderful success. Vice president at 35. Tom is so proud of her," Eleanor boasted. Martha waited for her mother to add, "If only you tried a little harder," but it didn't come. "Yes, Jessica is wonderful," Martha answered sincerely. She genuinely celebrated her sister's success. It was just that sometimes the subtle tone her mother Eleanor used when comparing the two sisters stung her heart. For Eleanor, with her traditional values, marriage and family were the foundation of a woman's happiness. Jessica had met those expectations by marrying Tom Harrison, a successful businessman, 8 years ago. They didn't have children yet, but Jessica was Eleanor's favorite daughter. "By the way, I heard from Jessica that you've been going to the hospital a lot lately. Is something wrong?" Eleanor's voice contained more of a prying tone than concern. Martha was momentarily at a loss for words. For the past few months, she had been visiting a fertility clinic without telling her family. Despite being told that pregnancy after 40 would be difficult, she was betting on this last chance. And just last week, she had received surprising news. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a regular checkup," Martha said lightly. "Regular checkups are important at your age," Eleanor agreed. "But don't overwork yourself. You're not young anymore." After hanging up, Martha sank into her sofa and placed her hand on her flat abdomen. She still couldn't believe it. That she was actually pregnant. Artificial insemination using a sperm bank had been her last hope. And it had succeeded. She would have to tell her family soon. Martha gazed out the window. The snow was falling more heavily now. Just imagining her mother's reaction made her stomach tighten. Eleanor would surely be furious. Having a child out of wedlock was unthinkable in her worldview. But Martha was determined. 42, single, and pregnant. This was her reality, and she intended to have this child, love it, and raise it. Even in the face of family opposition. A quiet joy of finally becoming a mother was overflowing within her. Through the rain-streaked window, Martha watched cars arriving at the Boston General Hospital parking lot. Now in her 7th month of pregnancy, her body was changing daily. Her loose maternity dress concealed her once slim figure and gently wrapped around her now visibly swollen belly. "Ms. Clark, the baby's heartbeat is stable, and everything is progressing well," Dr. Singh smiled while pointing at the ultrasound monitor. "Here's the latest image of your child. Martha gazed at the small life on the screen and felt her heart fill with emotion. At 7 months, the baby's form was becoming increasingly clear. Seeing the tiny hands move brought tears to her eyes. "Would you still prefer not to know the gender?" the doctor asked kindly. Martha smiled. "Yes, I'd like it to be a surprise." After leaving the examination room, she made her next appointment at the reception desk and headed to the parking lot. Her steps were light, but deep inside, a heavy shadow remained. She remembered the night 3 months ago when she had shared the news of her pregnancy with her family. After Jessica's promotion party, Martha had invited her mother and sister to her home and told them the truth. As she had anticipated, Eleanor was furious. "Are you out of your mind? Becoming an unwed mother at 42. Eleanor's eyes burned with anger. "Is this how you plan to disgrace our family?" Jessica wasn't as blatant, but she couldn't hide the jealousy in her eyes. "Congratulations, Martha," she said, but her voice sounded cold. In the 3 months since then, Martha had tried to reach out multiple times, but there had been little response from her mother. She occasionally communicated with Jessica, but their conversations remained superficial. Returning to her apartment, Martha entered the baby's room, which was still being set up. Pale mint green walls, a white wooden crib, and a rocking chair in the corner. She sat in the chair, imagining herself holding her yet unseen child. The doorbell brought her back to reality. Looking through the peephole, she saw Jessica standing there. "Jessica." Martha couldn't hide her surprise as she opened the door. "What brings you here without calling?" "I was just passing by," Jessica said, but her eyes restlessly scanned the room. "May I come in?" The two sat in the living room, and Martha served tea. Jessica sat on the sofa, crossing her legs and nervously playing with her hair. "Mom is still angry," she said abruptly. "But she says she'll come to the baby shower." Martha was surprised. "Really?" "She said that." "Yes. She thinks your choice is wrong, but she intends to love her grandchild," Jessica said. Silence followed, and she suddenly stood up. "Show me the baby's room." Martha guided her sister. Jessica looked around the room, her fingertips brushing the edge of the crib. Something, longing, perhaps, or jealousy, briefly crossed her face. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Tom and I, someday." She broke off. "Jessica, if there's something you want to talk about, I'm always here to listen," Martha said gently. Jessica suddenly stiffened. "There's nothing. Everything is fine," she said, almost suppressing her words. "How are the baby shower preparations coming along?" "Well, Linda's helping me," Martha answered. Linda had been her best friend and unwavering support since she announced her pregnancy. "I see," Jessica's voice held a hint of sarcasm. "As usual, everyone wants to help you." Before Martha could explore the meaning of that comment, Jessica looked at her watch and suddenly stood up. "I have to go. I have work." After seeing Jessica off at the door, Martha pondered her sister's strange behavior. It was clear she was hiding something. Was it related to her relationship with Tom? The next few weeks were busy for Martha. She completed work for several clients and prepared to go on maternity leave. With Linda's help, plans for the baby shower were progressing. Invitations were sent, decorations chosen, and catering arranged. Throughout this period, Martha was troubled by the rift with her family. Calls from Eleanor were rare, and when they came, they were short and formal. Conversations with Jessica had also become awkward. While Martha felt the loneliness of not having family support, she was helped by the warmth of her friends. The day before the baby shower, Martha visited Dr. Singh's office for her final prenatal checkup. "Everything is looking good, Ms. Clark," the doctor said with a smile. "Here's a detailed report on your baby's latest health status." She handed her an envelope. You can enjoy your baby shower without any worries. Martha took the envelope, thanking her with a smile. Outside, spring sunshine was illuminating the city. She returned to her apartment and did the final checks for tomorrow's preparations. Catering, decorations, gift bags for guests, everything was ready. Sitting by the window, she opened the envelope while gazing at the city view. As she read through the report, a look of relief spread across her face. All test results were normal, and the baby was healthy. And on the last page was information she hadn't known before. A boy, Martha whispered. Tears of joy welled up in her eyes. This was a secret between just her and her son. Martha quietly smiled, looking forward to the special day of celebration surrounded by family and friends. The soft May sunshine streamed through the windows of Martha's apartment, illuminating the pastel decorations arranged in the living room. A banner reading, "Welcome Baby," adorned the wall, and the table was laid with cookies shaped like tiny socks and hats. Blue and white balloons decorated every corner, filling the entire space with expectation and joy. Martha took a quiet deep breath in front of the mirror. Her pale blue maternity dress fit perfectly over her pregnant body, and her softly waved hair fell onto her shoulders. How long she had imagined this moment. The miraculous pregnancy, and now, this day celebrating her baby. Ready? Linda asked, opening the bedroom door with a bouquet in her arms. Guests are starting to arrive. Thank you, Linda, Martha smiled at her best friend. I wouldn't have made it to this day without you. Linda shook her head as she arranged the flowers. You're a strong woman, Martha. We all respect your decision. The doorbell rang, and Martha headed to the entrance. Opening it, she found a group of colleagues with bright smiles. Guests arrived one after another, and the apartment began to buzz with conversation and laughter. Martha's heart filled with warmth. Her design colleagues, longtime friends, and clients who had become friends, they had all gathered to celebrate this new chapter in her life. And then, sooner than expected, the doorbell rang again. Martha felt her chest tighten. When she opened the front door, Eleanor and Jessica were standing there. Her mother was dressed in her usual elegant attire, her expression difficult to read. Jessica wore a designer dress with perfect makeup, but there was something unsettled in her eyes. Mom, Jessica, thank you for coming, Martha greeted them with the brightest smile she could muster. Well, yes, Eleanor answered briefly and entered the room. Her eyes critically surveyed the decorations, and she frowned slightly. Isn't it a bit too much? It's lovely, Martha, Jessica said, but her voice sounded like an act. She glanced at Martha's abdomen and forced a smile. You've gotten quite big. Martha didn't reply and guided them to the living room. Already a dozen or so guests had gathered, chatting with drinks and snacks in hand. Eleanor immediately switched to a social smile upon meeting some acquaintances, while Jessica headed to the bar. Martha sighed but resolved to enjoy this day. The party progressed more pleasantly than expected. During the classic baby shower game, Baby Food Race, where adults tried to guess the contents of baby food by tasting it, the room was filled with laughter. Even Eleanor showed a momentary smile during the "Words Hidden in Diapers" game. When it was time to open gifts, Martha was touched by her friend's thoughtfulness. Adorable baby clothes, practical bottle sets, and handmade baby blankets, all warmed her heart. This is from me, Jessica offered a small box. When Martha opened it, inside was a high-end brand baby monitor. I chose the best, Jessica said, a bit proudly. Thank you, Jessica, Martha was genuinely grateful. In this moment, she felt a sign of reconciliation with her sister. Eleanor also presented a large package at the end. This has been passed down through generations. When Martha unwrapped it, a beautiful antique rocking chair appeared. Tears welled up in her eyes. Mom, is this? It belonged to your grandmother, Eleanor's voice softened. I held you and Jessica in this chair. Martha stood up and embraced her mother. For a moment, it seemed as though everything was back to normal. Eleanor relaxed her body just a little. As the gift-giving time ended and cake service was about to begin, Jessica suddenly stood up and lightly tapped her glass with a crystal spoon. A strange smile played on her face. "Everyone, may I have your attention please?" Jessica's voice echoed throughout the room. She raised her champagne glass high. "Let's celebrate our beloved sister Martha's baby shower." The room quieted, and all eyes turned to Jessica. She continued. "How remarkable that you managed to get pregnant at 40. What if you push yourself to give birth and end up with a disabled child?" Jessica's voice was sugary sweet but sharp as a blade. A sound of gasps spread through the room. Martha sat frozen, feeling the blood draining from her face. Her friends looked confused, exchanging anxious glances with each other. Eleanor suddenly stood next to Jessica and raised her glass. "That's right, and an unmarried single mother, what a disgrace." Her voice carried the weight of decades of old values. After silence dominated the room, a few awkward laughs arose. One of Martha's colleagues laughed loudly, thinking it was a joke, and a few others laughed nervously in response. But many guests shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Martha slowly stood up. Her heart was racing, but her face was surprisingly calm. She smiled. It was a small but resolute smile. "Jessica, Mom, I understand your concerns." Her voice was quiet but dignified. "It's natural that you might question my choices." Martha picked up the envelope that was on the table. The one she had received from Dr. Singh yesterday. "If you truly care, please look at this." She opened the envelope and took out the documents inside. It was an official test result with the doctor's signature and the hospital logo. Martha quietly held it up toward Jessica and Eleanor. "My baby is completely healthy. There are no issues in any of the tests," she said. And after a slight pause, she added, "And it's a boy." The atmosphere in the room changed. Complete silence fell. The color drained from Jessica's face, and Eleanor pressed her lips tightly together. The guests were watching with bated breath. Martha took a deep breath and carefully returned the documents to the envelope. There was a light of determination in her eyes. In this moment, she was stronger and more composed than ever before. She knew that what she was about to say would be meaningful not only for her own life but for many of the women in this room. "I have something to say," Martha's voice resonated throughout the entire room. "And I especially want you to hear this, Mom, Jessica." In the tense silence that filled the room, Martha continued with a composed demeanor. Her voice was soft yet carried a firm resonance. "This child is completely healthy. All tests show no abnormalities." "Thank you for your concern," Martha said, looking directly at Jessica and Eleanor. "And there's one more thing I want to tell you." Martha lifted her chin slightly and straightened her back. "I used a sperm bank. I didn't need a husband. All I wanted was a child." Her eyes shone defiantly. "Is there a problem with that?" The atmosphere in the room transformed. The mocking expression disappeared from Jessica's face, replaced by confusion and surprise. Eleanor seemed frozen with her mouth open, as if at a loss for words. Among the friends, small applause and voices of support began to rise. "You may not understand my choice," Martha continued. "But I've thought about this decision for a long time. I chose this path fully understanding the risks of pregnancy in my 40s and the difficulties of raising a child as a single mother." Linda stood up and positioned herself beside Martha. "We all support Martha. She is caring, strong, and will be a wonderful mother." One by one, friends stood up, expressing their support for Martha. A look of anxiety appeared on Eleanor's face. "You don't understand, Martha," Eleanor's voice trembled. Children need fathers. There's a reason for the traditional family structure. Don't impose values from decades ago, Mom, Martha said gently but firmly. Families don't come in just one form. With love, any structure can make a wonderful family. Martha placed her hand on her abdomen. I intend to provide this child with an environment overflowing with love. Even alone, I can give enough love. Eleanor tried to argue but couldn't find the words. Martha, Jessica spoke again. Her voice was trembling. She stumbled over her words. Martha looked into Jessica's eyes. She sensed some deep conflict within her sister. Jessica, if there's something you want to say. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The guests sensed the change in the situation and watched quietly. Martha took a step toward her sister. Can we talk later? Martha asked quietly. Jessica nodded slightly. Martha turned back to address all the guests. Everyone, thank you for respecting my choice and coming to celebrate today. This child will grow up surrounded by love. She smiled. Now, let's have some cake. The tension dissolved, and the party resumed. People restarted conversations and gathered around Martha to offer words of congratulation. Eleanor stood alone at a distance, watching her daughter with a confused expression. After the cake cutting, as guests began to leave, Martha invited Jessica into her study. When they were alone, a heavy silence spread through the room. Why did you say those things? Martha asked quietly. Jessica stared out the window, remaining silent for a while. I don't know, maybe it was jealousy, she admitted in a small voice. Jealousy? Martha asked in surprise. You have a successful career and a happy marriage with Tom. Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes. It only looks that way. What do you mean? Tom. Jessica faltered. Tom is having an affair. For almost a year now. Martha stared at her sister in shock. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I haven't told anyone, Jessica wiped away her tears. Especially not Mom. Can you imagine what she would say? Preserve your marriage, or you couldn't satisfy your husband. Jessica. Martha moved closer to her sister and placed a hand on her shoulder. That's not all, Jessica continued. We wanted children. But we couldn't have them. We've been undergoing fertility treatments for 3 years, but without success. Her voice sounded pained. And you, at 42, by your own choice, alone, you could do it. I couldn't bear it. Martha embraced her sister. Why didn't you tell me? We were estranged, and Mom expects me to be perfect. I couldn't admit failure, Jessica cried quietly. Tom's mistress, she's pregnant. Martha gasped. Jessica. Tom cut off the relationship, but I know he wants children. I can't fulfill that wish for him. That's Tom's problem, not your fault, Martha said firmly. Infertility isn't anyone's fault. Jessica continued to cry, as if releasing emotions she had suppressed for years. Mom has expectations of me. To be the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, and the perfect mother. But I can't do it. No one is perfect, Jessica, Martha said gently. Including Mom. They embraced for a long time. It was a moment when, as sisters, they truly shared each other's pain for the first time. Your baby, congratulations, really, Jessica finally said. This time, it was a genuine blessing. Thank you, Martha smiled. Will you be this child's aunt? Jessica nodded. Of course. When they left the room, Eleanor was standing in the hallway. Her face bore an expression Martha had never seen before. The arrogance was gone, replaced by fatigue and something like self-awareness. "Are you two, all right?" Eleanor asked. "Yes, Mom," Martha answered. "We're fine." Eleanor seemed about to say something but swallowed her words. She just nodded and returned to the living room. The golden autumn sunlight brightly illuminated Martha's living room. In the rocking chair by the window, she gently held her 3-month-old son Noah, swaying slowly. The small face showed no resemblance to his father, but Martha didn't mind. Noah's blue eyes and soft smile had become the center of her world. "He is truly a beautiful child." Martha looked up at Eleanor's voice. Her mother had just come from the kitchen, holding cups of chamomile tea for both of them. Martha gently laid Noah in his cradle and accepted the cup her mother offered. "Thank you, Mom." Eleanor sat on the sofa and gazed at her grandson's sleeping face. Her relationship with Martha had been gradually mending since the baby shower. Though not completely healed, a new sense of understanding and respect had sprouted between them. "His eyes look like yours," Eleanor said quietly. "But the line of his jaw reminds me of my father." Martha smiled. She understood her mother's effort to find family traits in Noah. It was a form of acceptance. "Is Jessica coming today?" Eleanor asked. "Yes, in the afternoon," Martha answered. "She and Tom will stop by after their counseling." Eleanor shifted slightly. Since learning about her daughter's infidelity and infertility issues, she had been grappling with complex emotions. Letting go of the illusion of a perfect family had not been easy for her. "Do you think they'll be all right?" Eleanor's voice contained an unusual anxiety. Martha considered this as she picked up her cup. "I don't know. Jessica is trying, but regaining trust isn't easy." The doorbell rang, and when Martha opened it, Jessica was standing there. She was alone. "Where's Tom?" Martha asked, and Jessica shrugged. "He said there was a work emergency after counseling." Her eyes showed fatigue. "As usual." Entering the living room, Jessica went straight to Noah and took his tiny hand. "Hello, sweet boy," she smiled gently. Over the past 3 months, Jessica had become an enthusiastic aunt. She visited several times a week, helping Martha with childcare and cherishing time with her nephew. It was also part of her own healing process. "How was counseling?" Martha asked quietly. Jessica let out a deep sigh. "To be honest, it's difficult. Tom is cooperative on the surface, but I don't think he's sharing his true feelings." Eleanor silently listened to their conversation. Once, she would have said, marriage is something to be preserved. But now, she had learned to prioritize her daughter's pain. "What do you think?" Eleanor suddenly asked. "About your relationship with Tom?" Jessica looked at her mother in surprise. "Me?" She laughed softly. "It's unusual for you to ask about my feelings, Mom." "Sometimes change is necessary," Eleanor said quietly. "I learned that from your sister." The three exchanged meaningful glances. The family dynamics had changed forever. "I still love Tom," Jessica finally answered. "But I need to value myself too." "I learned that by watching Martha." Martha squeezed her sister's hand. "You're strong, Jessica. Whatever choice you make, I'll support you." Noah began to cry softly, and Martha picked him up. Eleanor stood and brought a bottle from the kitchen. "May I hold him?" Eleanor asked. Martha smiled and entrusted her son to her mother's arms. While giving Noah his bottle, Eleanor spoke in a soft voice. "You're a special child. You are so loved." Outside the window, fallen leaves danced in the wind. The seasons were changing, heralding a time of new beginnings. Martha smiled quietly. What she had been thinking about the meaning of family was now taking shape before her eyes. Blood ties are just the beginning of family. True bonds are built through understanding, acceptance, and unconditional love. She vowed to pass this lesson on to Noah. And that she herself was still learning.